Well, Clacton had an election last week between Nigel Farage and Count Binface. And there may have been other people, I'm not sure. But I had a vested interest in Count Binface. I mean, obviously, because I did a video on it last week. And, you know, even though it may seem like a joke, it was a real election. And people had real feelings about who was going to win or not. Now, when I did the Count Binface video, I had a lot of people that were in the comments kind of giving me a rundown of how things were. But we have a follow-up to that video, and this was recommended by Nerdy Competence. That is an awesome name. And he recommended that we watch Farage Wins, but at what cost? And this is by TLDR News. Link will be down below so you can go over and support their channel. I'm sure they'd appreciate that. I think it's going to be super interesting because that is a question that I have. Question? What just happened? That is a question that I have. Farage wins, but at what cost? Before we get going here, go ahead and like the video. Let's see what we could see.
7th of July 2026 at 1 PM, Reform UK posted that Nigel Farage will make an announcement about his future in 1 hour. This came as something of a surprise to many of us, and there was frenzied speculation about what this could mean. Some journalists suggested it could simply be another policy announcement dressed up to appear like something more seismic, whereas others believed it could be something as dramatic as Farage announcing he'd be stepping back from politics. As it turned out, neither of these suggestions were correct. Instead, Farage announced that he'd be resigning his seat in the House of Commons in order to trigger a by-election in Clacton, an election he would be standing in. Nominally, this appeared to be a way for him to regain some momentum for reform, and also to sidestep a Parliamentary Standards Commission investigation into him by putting his fate, instead, in the hands of Clacton residents. However, with none of the major parties standing, the by-election descended into farce, and Farage's only...
Oh, wow. No one. I mean, I knew that. I knew that no one was standing. This is all new to me, so I'm learning what that even means. But I knew that there was no one there. That's where Count Binface came in.
With none of the major parties standing, the by-election descended into farce, and Farage's only real opponent ended up being a comedy candidate called Count Binface. While Farage did end up beating Binface, with him securing a majority of more than...
Oh, I wanted to see this. He got 9,455 votes. I mean, I think that's good. I mean, obviously, he would want more. But by election results won 22,000. I mean, that's not too bad. I remember seeing an interview with him where he said, you know, he'd be happy if he got one. So that's pretty good.
35 points. While Farage did end up beating Binface, with him securing a majority of more than 35 points, this outcome probably isn't what he was hoping for when he made his speech back on the 7th of July. So in this video, we're going to explain a little about the by-election itself, run through the results, and explain where this leaves both Farage and Reform UK.
Okay, this is perfect. It's perfect for somebody like me because it sounds like he's going to explain even more of what I don't know, which is great.
By-elections usually aren't that interesting. But in the latest issue of our magazine, Too Long, we argue that UK party leaders are wielding them in new ways, and look at what that might mean for the future of politics. That's just one of the articles in our longest issue ever. Subscribe to get your copy by clicking the link in the description. So let's start by going through the results. Farage secured more than 60%, increasing his majority significantly since the 2024 general election. This gives him a majority over...
Oh. Well, I mean, you can see why. Because it looks like the remainder, the vote that he didn't get was divided by more people. So obviously that means that he... Well, I was about to state the obvious, which is he got more votes than he... I can't believe that was just going to come out of my mouth. He got more votes than he did last time. Well, obviously, because he has 63% instead of 46%. But anyway, I think you know what I'm saying. There were people who didn't vote for him last time who voted for him this time. Still, another obvious statement. Maybe I should just keep going, okay?
Significantly since the 2024 general election. This gives him a majority over his main rival in the by-election, Count Binface, of 35 points. Now, an interesting thing to mention here is turnout, with it measuring in at under 45%, a significant drop-off since 2024.
Oh, wow. And it looks like a drop-off.
Measuring in at under 45%.
Previous years, too. That's interesting. So you probably had some people who decided to stay home because their parties weren't having a candidate standing or stand in, or I don't know how to say that. So you probably had low turnout. Well, that's super interesting. I know a lot of times I've had people in my comments give the people in the United States a hard time for not showing up and voting. But it kind of seems like that's what happened here. You just had people who probably didn't like the two candidates, which freaking happens all the time in the United States. And then they just decided they weren't going to vote. So that's interesting.
A significant drop-off since 2024. Obviously, a big part of this is down to the unserious nature of the by-election itself, but it probably is also a sign of the waning enthusiasm for Farage in Clacton. Now, in fairness, this is broadly what we expected from Clacton. There's a good reason why Farage decided to pick Clacton to stand in when he returned to frontline politics as the leader of Reform in 2024. Clacton is one of the most right-leaning constituencies in the country, with it actually returning...
Wait, okay. So, I mean, I don't know this, and I don't know if he's going to explain that in this video, but you could just pick where you want to stand in? I mean, you don't have to live there or anything like that. You could be like, I think the people who would vote for me are in this area, so I'm going to go there. I mean, this is probably a deeper question, and you can answer in some comment. But maybe, I don't know, maybe you can. That would be great. But maybe you have a video or something. You can, put that in the comments as well, or fill out the recommendation form. Because I'm curious to know that. I probably will watch. I'm always hesitant to watch videos about politics in the UK or places like that, because sometimes you attract some dicey people into the comments and into the community. That's just the nature of politics. That's how it works. But I am curious to know how things work over there. So who knows? I might end up living there one day. I don't know.
Clacton is one of the most right-leaning constituencies in the country, with it actually returning UKIP's only MP in the 2015 election, and giving Conservatives relatively large majorities ever since, until Farage opted to stand. According to Electoral Calculus, Clacton is one of the most economically right-wing constituencies in the UK, and the fourth highest culturally right-wing constituency in the country, making constituents particularly receptive to a candidate like Farage. Additionally, 75% of people in Clacton voted Leave in 2016, the second highest Leave vote in the country. It has significantly more deprivation than the national average, and a much higher white population, 96% compared to 83% nationally.
Okay, Leave, I get that. Ethnically white, I get that. Deprivation, I don't get that.
And has a much higher white population, 96% compared to 83% nationally, and has an average age of 56.6 years. As a right-wing candidate, this demographic breakdown in the constituency suited Farage well, and while the ballot paper was the longest in British history, with more than 34 candidates standing, meaning the ballot paper is costing the council 4 times as much as normal to print, the fact that no other major party stood in the by-election meant that a big victory was virtually inevitable.
Right.
So, why didn't the other parties stand? Why did they make it even easier for Farage to win the by-election?
That's a good question. This video is really good. Why didn't they stand? I wish you would say what standing is. I mean, I can look it up, obviously, but okay, keep going. Why didn't they stand? Let's see.
Well, it all comes down to why Farage triggered the by-election in the first place. Now, as we touched on in the intro, the by-election was triggered by Farage for essentially 2 reasons. The first was that Farage hoped that it would undermine the Standards Committee investigations into him. While the by-election wouldn't end the investigations outright, Farage assumed that if he framed the by-election as a way of letting Clacton residents have their say on his suitability to be an MP in light of the financial scandals, then the Privileges Committee would lose its authority. Even if they did decide that he had broken the rules, he could point to his victory in Clacton and claim that he'd been given a mandate by Clacton constituents even despite the scandals, and that this should, democratically, trump the judgment of a handful of politically motivated MPs.
That's kind of what happened in the United States. Obviously Trump was convicted, but he still ran for election. And now because he won, he has the ability to say, the people voted for me. So obviously they don't believe that I'm a convicted felon or whatever it is, so I don't know. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Democratically trump the judgment of a handful of politically motivated MPs. Additionally, if the Standards Committee went even further and opted to suspend him from the House of Commons for more than 5 days, triggering a recall petition, and even if this recall petition was successful and triggered a subsequent Clacton by-election, Farage could claim that this was a farce, as he had already been given a mandate by them a few months earlier. The second main upside Farage saw in triggering the by-election was that it would help Reform regain some momentum. With Reform losing a number of by-elections they stood a competitive chance in the last year, with them not doing terribly well in the recent Manchester mayoral by-election, and with them lacking any big defections in the last few months, Reform only really had negative press coverage. Winning the by-election, especially if he was able to increase his majority against the Conservatives, would give Reform much needed momentum in the media. However, if this was Farage's 4D chess move, then the main party's decision not to stand in the by-election put Farage unexpectedly in check.
I feel like I would have that he had to have some way of knowing that these other parties weren't going to stand. It doesn't seem like he would take that big of a gamble. I mean, maybe he would. Maybe it was his only option. Maybe he was like, either I'm going to continue to be investigated and found guilty, or I could take my chances and do it this way. So maybe he was kind of forced into that move, but I would think that he found out somehow that there weren't going to be any standing. Who knows? They might have some backdoor deals going on or something like that. If you don't stand, I'll give you this or something.
It meant that the election was no longer competitive, meaning Farage can no longer use the Democratic trump card against the Privileges Committee, nor expect any particularly favourable press coverage. Any coverage today will likely be heavily caveated by the fact that the only person he really beat was a man dressed as a bin.
Right.
So, despite his victory, Farage probably isn't going to achieve what he wanted to from the by-election. It won't elicit many glowing news articles, and will likely only draw attention back to the absurdity of the election.
Okay, so it sounds like he lost some power. Because before, in the 2024 election, he had people standing against him. So he probably, even though he got fewer votes, that's interesting. Even though he got fewer votes, he was probably in a better position to claim that he had a mandate, even though 46%, I think it was, doesn't sound like a mandate to me. But it's like, the people had a lot of choices and he won. But now, even though he got more votes, a higher percentage, it's like you don't have as much power or much leverage, I guess, because who are they going to pick? You or Count Binface? There weren't other people to choose from.
News articles, and will likely only draw attention back to the absurdity of the election. Additionally, when Farage does return to Parliament, he can expect the results from the Privileges Committee within weeks or months, attracting more attention to his financial scandals. And on top of this, there's a decent chance that there'll be another Clacton by-election later in the year, if, as we explained earlier, the Standards Committee does sanction Farage. Unlike this time around, though, other parties would likely contest...
Hold on. Question about that. So, if they sanction Farage... then that means he's out of office? Is that what sanction means? I'm guessing if they're going to have another by-election. So then if that's true, then this was like his last hope. Because at least this way, he gave himself a little more leverage in his mind because he can come back and say that the people voted for me. So he had a little more leverage. But he can still, not win. What was I trying to say? He could still be in a position where he gets sanctioned, so he's out of office anyway. So it's like, I'm going to be out of office, So I might as well just try this and see if it works.
This does sanction Farage. Unlike this time around, though, other parties would likely contest this. The Conservatives, for instance, have already confirmed that they would take part in any such by-election. With more details about his financial scandals in the public realm, and with more time for Labour to gain on reform in the national polls, this election could end up being more risky for Farage. So, while Farage's victory looks significant, he's still in a precarious position, and it's quite possible that things could get even worse in the next few months as we get closer to a potential second Clacton by-election.
Ooh. All right. Well, that was super informative, very interesting. Now I have a better idea of how things work over there, at least in Clacton, and what's coming up. So, it sounds to me that, yeah, he won, but he has less power than he had before, less leverage. I don't know. I guess those are the same thing. He has less leverage than he had before, and he still could get sanctioned because it sounds like they're continuing the investigations into all the shenanigans that he had going on. And if they do have a second by-election, then he's going to have more people stand against him, and they're going to have a lot more ammo to go against him because there's going to be more information about his investigations out. So sounds like it's just a hot mess going on over there. What his politics are, I think I know a little bit. I think he's right leaning. I don't think I know he is. And that's one of the reasons he went to Clacton, because it seemed like that was a place that was more right leaning. So that was interesting. The politics over there are super interesting. I do want to watch a video about it. So if you have one, let me know. I'll definitely check it out. Do my best to check it out anyway. So that was a great video there. Thanks. Nerdy Competence. Great name. That's, I was about to say it's going to be a link down below. Oh, there is a link down below for the recommendation form. If you want to go ahead and recommend the video, Lisa or I will do our best to take a look at it. And if something that makes sense, then I'll react to it. Hopefully you liked that video there. If you did and you want to see more reactions just like it, then subscribe to the channel, man. It's easy and it's free. My name is Greg. I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.